Welcome to Alternative Dog Moms Podcast. I'm Kimberly Gauthier, the creator of Keep the Tail Wagging. For the past 9 years, I've been blogging about raw feeding, pet wellness, and life as a crazy dog mom. I've seen massive improvements in my dog's health since I started raising my dogs naturally, and I'm passionate about sharing my experience to help other pet parents.
I'm Erin Scott. For the past 9 years, I've been researching and learning everything I can about healing cancer, allergies, autoimmune, and mystery illnesses in both my dogs and myself, and I can't wait to share with you everything I've learned on this journey. As the Alternative Dog Moms, we're bringing you all the latest dog health news that we're following and sharing the tips, tricks, and resources we learn along the way. Now, let's get started. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Erin.
And a happy National Raw Feeding Week to you.
Why, thank you very much. National Raw Feeding Week to you as well. Today, I'm super excited to announce that we have another guest, and it's my really good friend, Scott J. Marshall, the third?
Second.
I don't know.
There will be no third.
I just call him Scott.
Well, welcome, Scott. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me. How are you guys today?
Doing good.
Good.
So, I met Scott. I don't know years anymore. So everything is like 2017, 2018. But Scott and I met, about 2017, 2018. That's sort of like when all of us kind of met each other. And Scott was a member of my doomed group, the Raw Feeders Kicked Out Club, which I created because I kept getting kicked out of raw feeding groups. And then eventually I kicked myself out of that one because it was just like, I hate this. This sucks.
You created a perfect storm of a Facebook group.
I know. And it was so funny because when I finally just gave up on it, Scott calls me and he goes, so what did you really expect would happen when you created a group for all the people that got kicked out of other raw feeding groups?
Hey, you tried something. Maybe
I didn't really think about it.
You could have made like the best group ever and it could have just worked and all those people just would have clicked with each other, but just didn't work out that way.
It was bad. But yeah, Scott and I, we met each other because someone sent me a message telling me about this horrible person.
That would be me.
Who had fat dogs and was trying to teach people how to feed raw. And as someone who constantly got attacked in air quotes, for my fat dogs, because Rodrigo and Sydney, at the time, they didn't seem fat to me. But looking back, especially after years into raw feeding and trimming down, and I look back at pictures over the time, it's like, ooh, especially Sydney, she was a chunk. And so I was just like, this is a person I can connect with because yes, you can have fat, raw fed dogs. I mean,
yep.
I was really happy. Somebody just told me that they thought Nessie looked really skinny. And I was like, I'll take that as a compliment.
I know, exactly. It's like, thank you so much.
It feels as good as someone calling me skinny, maybe even better.
It feels so good. Because I remember people would join the group. And I remember this, I don't remember the person's name because I never remembered names, but I do remember their gorgeous golden retrievers because that's where my mind always goes. And they had either 2 or 3 in the picture. They're like, hey, I just joined the group. They were probably in the group all of 5 minutes before people were like, your dogs are fat. You really need to work on that, and I was just, and I just basically sent the person a message just saying, I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
Sorry you got dumped on.
I am so sorry. And that was pretty much the beginning of the end for me. And I remember one of the persons was like, well, what was I supposed to say? And I'm like, nothing. You could have just said nothing. Because it was, well, that's just not in my nature. So yeah, I do have a raw feeding group again, but my raw feeding group is really mellow and tame. And guess who's a member of my group? Oh my God. This is
Dr. Ian Billinghurst.
Yes.
I saw that.
It's like so exciting.
I saw that the other day.
Oh yeah. He's a really nice person.
Well, Scott, I have been a lurker in your group for quite a long time now. But
there's a few of them.
The first time we've officially met. So I don't know your origin story. How did you get into doing all this?
Oh boy.
I know.
Kimberly's heard all this before, yeah. So
he got a dog, and he was in a group, and he wanted to really do good by his dog. And so another person in this group, some lady, I do know it was an older lady, she helped him. That's what I remember.
Yep. And it was, so Vulcan, my oldest dog and my first dog, is almost 14. And before I got him, for probably 6 or 8 months, when we got him, just for context, he's almost 14 now. When we got him, he was probably like 10 months old. And for like 6 months or so before we got him, I started like, okay, I want to get a dog. Because where I grew up in the houses I grew up in, we were always on, food stamps and state assisted housing. So the places that they were like, you can pick from A, B, or C, it was always places where you couldn't have pets because they were always like less expensive.
My husband has a very similar story in that.
There you go. So you've heard the deal before. And so I was never able to get a dog, even though I wanted one. So I'm out of the house now, and it's like, all right, well, I want to get a dog. So I start researching all the things, what bowl do I get? What's the best leash? What's all the best things? And eventually I had to say, well, what am I going to feed him? Is it going to be Iams? Is it going to be Purina? Is it going to be the store brand, the Kibbles and Bits, the whatever it was? And a woman in a Facebook group, her name was Vivian, and she was from Scotland, asked me if I'd ever heard of raw feeding, and it just spiraled from there. I started researching it for the next 6 months, and then probably for another several months. I don't know. I don't even want to claim to remember how many because it was so long ago. But for several months after we had him, kept researching and finally just went, okay, I'm just going to do this. And I actually found a couple of months ago the video of the very first meal that I ever fed raw.
Oh, wow.
And it's him out on the front lawn of this place that we were renting. We were renting a basement apartment, and it's chicken breast with rib meat still, or rib bone still attached to it, complete with fiber, aka the leaves from the tree that had been shedding them during the fall. So there's some fiber in there as well. And the entire time, the house guest of the guy we were renting the basement from is just sitting there like, you're going to kill your dog. You're going to give him salmonella. This is a stupid idea. I'm like, can you shut up? Just shush, please. Shush. You don't even live here. Just be quiet. Go away. Go away. And it just spiraled from there. I ended up in a position at a company that did text, email, phone calls, and app notifications for everything for school districts. So if little Timmy didn't show up for class, or he was 10 minutes late, or he got a C instead of a B on his test, or whatever it was, we would send all 4 of those things out to everyone. Grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, sister, uncle, the guy you met at the bus station, like whoever you wanted on the profile. And when they were building the apps, they were like, hey, we need you guys to go build an app for whatever it is that you want to. And I was into raw feeding at the time, obviously, or I guess I shouldn't say obviously, but I was pretty heavy into the raw feeding stuff at that point. So I made an app for it, and that's what I made the group that I still have currently for. And it just went crazy from there. And on and on and on. Ended up writing the book and the course and all the other stuff. All the stuffs.
Yeah. I'm always curious, like, whether some people come to it like from a health issue, and some people come to it just because, like, well, what am I supposed to feed them? Like, what's the best thing to feed them? I always find that interesting.
Luckily, I don't have that story. I hear that story over and over and over and
I'm
over,
sure.
Unfortunately. So I'm really grateful that I don't have that origin story, but I've definitely heard it enough times to be able to empathize with it. Because without this sounding pompous, because it's not, it's just like a numbers thing. After dealing with thousands and thousands of people over the years, like I've heard just about every version of the story that there is. My previous dog just passed away from cancer, and I don't want to repeat the same mistakes that I made. Or my dog has cancer now, and I'm trying to turn things around. Or they just got diagnosed with this or that, or they won't stop the scratching or the vomiting or the diarrhea, or all of them combined. So I've heard the stories before, and I'm really, really grateful that I don't have an origin story like that.
So what made you want to start helping other people transition to raw?
Hey, quick question for you. Are you someone who wants to be fit, healthy, and happy? And what if I told you could get your dream body by simply just listening to a podcast? I'm Josh.
And I'm KG, and we are the hosts of the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast.
Listen, we get it. Fitness isn't easy. Carbs, no carbs.
Just stop, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's why we made this podcast. We get straight to the facts so you can become your best you.
So the way to check us out is click the link in the show notes or search Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. We'll see you soon.
Honestly, it was that app. Because I thought I've always been fairly creative. I don't make it sound like I'm an artist or anything, but I used to do a lot of drawing and playing instruments all through school. But so when the opportunity to make an app came up, I was like, okay, this sounds like fun. And I think that I actually ran through and did the numbers. I probably put like 150 hours into this free app that went up on the store in the Apple and the Android store in 2013. It might still be there. I don't know. But I just thought that it was a really cool idea. And once I got into it and started doing it, I'm like, how do I let people even know that this exists? Like, I didn't have a platform or anything at the time. So the only option was to get it onto the store and like, oh, maybe I'll go and make a Facebook group. And thank goodness that I did that. But it was really the responses and questions that came from the group combined with, so that was an inspiration, the questions about the group and how just raw feeding questions in general that came from the app. And fast forward 3 years later, I had decided I don't like the 9-to-5 game. I have a really, and I'm sure that there's some issues there, but I have a really big problem being told what to do. So having bosses was just never something that jived with me very well. And I started asking myself, okay, well, if I'm not going to have a 9-to-5, what am I going to do? Ended up finding a video online of this Canadian guy driving to do his taxes with his dog, who ironically now 8 years later is my new business partner as of this year. So awkward, full story, come full circle. But he was talking about all these different ways that you can get online and start having an online business and stuff. And I tried all kinds of weird stuff, like I don't even know if I have any of them near me, but gluten-free fitness books and all kinds of weird stuff. And none of it ever did anything or made any traction. And my wife was just like, why are you doing this? Like, do you even like the gluten-free stuff? I'm like, if I have to write one more gluten-free fitness book, I'm going to pull my eyeballs out. And so she's asking me those questions, and the guy that's my business partner now is asking me questions, and another friend. I'm like, what? The only thing I really like are like my wife and my dogs. Like, everything else is just kind of meh. And that's when I did the video course, which turned into, no, the other way around. That's when I wrote the book that turned into the course, and when Raw Feeding 101 actually started. So it was just supposed to be the name of that particular course. And I'm like, this makes a whole lot more sense for a raw feeding business name than Dog Dad Official does. Like, why? So the one little idea for a course became the all of it. And I think it was a good call. It definitely gets more search that way.
Well, I was so glad when you changed the name, because there's another dog dad, and I would tag him in things and he would get so mad.
I think I know who you're talking about. Isn't he a dog trainer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know who you are and why you're tagging me in this stuff. And I'm like, oops, sorry.
I still get random tags because that page still exists. The Dog Dad Facebook page still exists, and I get the most random tags about stuff, like anything that has to do with like, oh, we put dog dad on a mug or a t-shirt or whatever it is, and someone tags me and it's like, come and check out the new @dog dad mug line, and I'm like, come on guys, you're tagging your own business that starts with dog dad. Make sure it's your business that you're tagging. Come on now, come on.
So the thing that will always astound me, because of my immense bad luck with Facebook groups, is the fact that Raw Feeding 101 is such an excellent group. I recommend it to everyone. I am a member who lurks. Probably like once a month I'll answer a question, but for the most part, I just sit there and read what people are posting. What is your secret sauce to running such a successful group?
Oh man. Number one, I'd say these two things are the most critical, and they're both equally important, as in one is great and the other is great, but it takes both of them to really make it work. And that would be a clear set of rules and expectations that everybody agrees to when they join, and an amazing moderator team that helps, what is the word I'm looking for here? Not implement it, helps enforce it.
Yeah.
Because the problem with enforcing rules is it's all or nothing. Because if it's an if, and, or buts, or some people can get away with this and some people can't, then the authority of the situation just goes completely away. Mm-hmm. So if it's like, you can't go and post links to your, I don't know, I make braided dog leashes business or something, like, if you can't do that, then the person that sells this thing can't do it. Or you can't call someone a jerk and get your comment deleted, but then this person can call someone stupid and their comment stays. Mm-hmm. Like, it has to be really consistent, and sometimes that really ticks people off. Mm-hmm. So unless you're willing to get angry messages from random people you've never met at 2:00 in the morning saying just about every insult you can possibly think of, and then some creative little twists, it's probably not a good idea to start a Facebook group. But those two things, having a clear set of rules of what isn't okay, and a group of moderators that are genuinely invested in making it a good place to be. Because no one person, I don't care how awesome they are, no one person can be in a Facebook group all the time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long for, as you know, Kimberly, it doesn't take very long for a post to go off the rails. You go to bed at 10:00 and there's nothing there, and you wake up at 6 a.m., 494 comments, 75 angry reactions. It's like, what's going on? Why is everyone mad?
Oh,
so
yeah,
that rules and people willing to help you enforce them.
So do you ever just like want to poke your eyeballs out at like getting asked the same questions over and over again?
You would think I would. And like, I can't stand, what is a good way to say this? The short answer is no, I don't. Even though in every other aspect of life, that kind of thing would really bug me. Like, if back in the day when I was still doing 9-to-5 stuff, if a coworker asked me how to do the same thing 6 times in a row, I'd eventually just go, no, I'm not going to tell you. You go tell the manager that you've asked me 6 times and I told you 6 times and you still can't remember. I don't get paid enough to deal with you anymore. Go away. But with the group members, it's a different story, because I love you, group members, but this is the truth. I really don't care about them. I care about their dogs. Like when I have someone, and I've told people this several times, and 99.9% of people genuinely appreciate it. But when someone signs up for meal plans or they do our boot camp training programs, I tell them, like, you're not my client. The dog is my client. You just happen to be the one that speaks English. So even though I do get asked the same question over and over, or at least I read the same post over and over and over again, that dog behind that person has never had their owner ask that question before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually kind of nice in a way, because my end goal is the dogs and them having the happier, healthier, hopefully longer life. So it's actually kind of nice having the repetitive questions, because after hearing them so many times, not only do I have an answer for it, but I'll come up with a way to answer the question that's actually effective, not just a way for me to answer the question and move on so it looks like I engaged in the post and I comment on everything, but something that's actually going to solve the problem, because that's what I ultimately want. Like if someone's like, should I sign up for this course that costs this much, or should I get meal plans that cost X amount more? If they're going to get a better solution out of the one that costs less, that's the one that I'm going to tell them to do, because I mean, like, yeah, money's great and I need to pay my bills too, but there's no point in me giving them something that's more expensive if 2 months later they've still got the same problem. Like, no, let's fix the problem, and then, not for this to sound bad, but then you won't have to ask me questions anymore. You won't have to ask any more questions in the Facebook group, because there's always so many people asking questions and stuff gets buried. And if the same person is having to ask the same things over and over and over again, that's that many more people whose posts that have never posted anything never get seen. So short answer is no. And then the not short answer is that big ramble that I just gave. Kimberly's heard me rant more than one time.
I don't have rants anymore. I'm actually quite relieved about it.
I have a big problem not ranting. Not like in an angry way, though. It's like I just want to keep talking because there's so much to say about it. But shut up, Scott. Shut up.
That's not considered ranting, though. That's considered,
rambling.
Yeah, it's just rambling. It's perfectly fine. So when it comes to raw feeding, I have noticed over the past year just an inordinate number of people who are now offering consultations. Mm-hmm. And at first I thought it was really exciting because there are a number of people who are starting to look to raw feeding and they're curious about it. They want to do better for their dogs. But lately I've noticed there's a fine line. It's funny because there's always been a few people that I recommend when someone wants to work with someone, because I personally am not interested in working with anyone on this. I don't have the patience.
I don't blame you. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I can't. I tried helping one person one time and I wanted to poke my eyes out. It was awful. And so I had
lots of eyes being poked out in this conversation.
No, exactly. It's awful. Just all this self-mutilation talk. I send people your way. And but
appreciate
one
it.
thing
Thank you very much.
I've noticed is that people are there's this line of people who are, helping people feed their dogs better. And they kind of do I'm going to meet people where they are method and help them work their way into raw feeding. And then there are the people who are basically it's raw or nothing, and they're freaking people out. And those are usually the people that I hear from, because they're like, I don't know what to do. But I was wondering, what are your thoughts on, just the growing number of people who are offering consultations? And do you have any insight into how someone can choose or determine if this is a person that I can work with? Are there any type of red flags that people should look for?
So I am going to try and answer this in just an honest way, because there's no way I could say that I'm not going to, but there's no way for me to answer this question in an unbiased way. Right. Yeah. So here, I think that it's kind of like a two-parter question, right? So here, the thoughts on the rising number of people doing it in and of itself is a good thing, because I can't help everyone. and no one can help everyone. So just as an example, if let's say that 1,000 orders for meal plans came in for me today, I would not be like jumping up and down for joy, like, woohoo, 1,000 sales. My immediate thought would be, crap, because there's no way that I'm doing 1,000 orders in 7 to 14 days. Like, it's not happening. So people are going to be mad and things are going to be late and all that stuff. So no one person, no one company, no one whatever can help everyone. So in and of itself, I think it's a good thing. The problem is when people go through a weekend seminar and then try doing it. Mm-hmm. And this one's probably going to get me heat, but whatever. Whatever at this point. I think that there's also a lot more of the advanced programs that do teach a lot of important stuff, but don't teach a lot of the stuff that actually matters when it comes to doing something like making a recipe for someone. If the goal of that recipe is to meet a specific nutrient standard like NRC or AFCO or FDIF, it's been freaking 13 years and I still don't know how to pronounce that, and I don't think I'll ever FDIF, and I'll probably forget by the next time I say it.
I do like FDIF though.
FDIF. But if the goal is to meet one of those, then as informative as those classes are, even like the really expensive ones, they don't cover the like meal creation portion of it, like virtually at all. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have this weird both ends of the spectrum where you can get some letters after your name if you want to go through a weekend seminar, right? And you can get letters after your name if you spend a year in this really rigorous, hardcore collegiate level program. And on both ends of the spectrum, you've never gone and made a recipe, the thing that you're getting on Instagram to go and sell now. Mm-hmm. So I think that the only, and this is where the bias part comes in, and I recognize that it sounds biased, but it's just a fact, and I'm not the only one, is look for people that have some kind of, and this makes it sound like a video game, but I'll clarify, some kind of legacy. And I don't mean like in some crazy video game where it's like in the legacy of blah, blah. No, I mean like there's a history there. Like their Instagram post didn't start 10 days ago or something like that. I don't even really care about the number of followers. Like I'd be more interested in seeing someone that had been posting content and whatever version it was, videos, infographics for the last year and a half, 2 years, and they had 500 followers on Instagram, than someone that started a week ago and had 10,000 followers on Instagram or wherever it was, subscribers on YouTube, group members, whatever it is. So I would say look for someone that has some kind of history. And if there's a way to look at reviews and talk to other people that have worked with them in the past, that's probably the best, because the people that have been doing it for a long time and have actually gone and done the work, they will have those people. They will have somewhere, whether it's their website, whether it's Facebook page, somewhere there's some kind of feedback from the community going like, this person's awesome, this person sucks. I'm like, oh, this person's kind of so-so. And there will be people that have worked with them before, unless they've just been super quiet about it for years, which people do. They're really selective about who they do and don't work with, but that's kind of like an outlier. So I think it's a really good thing that there's more people getting into it. I also think it is a scary thing for the people that are trying to get help from people. And my advice to navigate that would be look for some kind of history behind the person, regardless of who it is.
Yeah.
Let's just say that you never do anything with me ever. Great. There's tons of other people that have some kind of history behind them. You can go and look at Instagram, YouTube, Facebook pages, Facebook groups, all those things where people have been talking about them for a long time. And you can get real person feedback of what it was like. Because at the end of the day, the dog is the only thing that really matters to me. Like, I love the people. I appreciate the people. I appreciate how much effort and time and money and emotional investment and everything else that they make. But at the end of the day, the dog is the end goal. And so with these, I've seen some nightmare meal plans. Like, I've seen where people have paid $800 for a set of 2 meal plans. One of them was delivered, and it was on a piece of printer paper in a grocery store parking lot. And they never got the second one. And it was an 80-10-10 mix that, not that there's anything wrong with 80-10-10, but that's what it was 80% muscle meat, 10% bone, 5% liver, 5% other organ.
$400, please.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, it
I have too.
freaks me out.
I've had people I had one person, I don't think I ever told you this, Erin. I purchased a meal plan from Scott once because someone contacted me because they got like a ridiculous meal plan. They didn't get everything that they were supposed to get. They spent their budget. I don't have any more money. And I was so heartbroken.
I remember this.
I contacted Scott and I was like, hey, can I buy a meal plan from you for this person over here? Because those things are happening. And I honestly think, and it's funny because I see this across social media in all industries where people want to start a business and they're not prepared for the demand. They don't know how to run a business. Because I think another thing that a lot of these courses are missing is that if you are going to label yourself as a professional course and you know that people are going to be taking your course to start a business, there needs to be a professional segment to talk to people about, how to start a business, like the legalities of running a business, the insurance, the liability.
That's why the very first thing in my course is this is not teaching you how to start a business or be a nutritionist. This is for you and for your dogs. Because of exactly what you're talking about.
I now have, because I share recipes. I use Animal Diet Formulator. I love playing around with it to share recipes, but I now put a huge disclaimer. I am sharing this for informational purposes only. This is not a general recipe for all dogs. It's just for information. It's not for you. Because I will get questions. Well, how can I customize this for my dogs? And I'm like, you can talk to a professional, but it's like, I do not want to go there only because my fear is people not following the recipe and not feeling confident to tell me that a certain protein, like they don't have access to something or they can't afford something. So they're just going to take the recipe and, change it up to what they can do. Or, they're going to stretch it out a little bit or just drop certain ingredients because they don't need it. And there's so much misinformation. I mean, I even had someone reach out to me recently asking me to tell them how to balance a recipe, a commercial recipe. They're going to buy this food. And it's like, but it says
like an 80-10-10 pre-made.
No, it wasn't. It was a complete mix.
Oh.
But they thought that it didn't have a certain ingredient in it. I won't name the ingredient because I don't want to call the person out. But it was missing an ingredient, and they thought that meant it wasn't balanced. And I can only gather that we're all educating ourselves. I mean, all of us who are learning about raw feeding, our education basically comes from Facebook. I mean,
yeah, that's where mine started for sure.
We're getting it from Facebook. And so I still hear when I post recipes, I hear people say there's only one secreting organ in that recipe. It's not balanced. And I'm like, it's not how it works. But I get it because, years when I first started, when you're looking at 80-10-10, that's how you start. And I try to remind people that's just the foundation, but there's so much more to all of this, which is what I find fascinating, but it's also what I find terrifying, because just the idea of doing that again and again and again and again.
Yeah. Yep. I'd be lying if I said my pet diet designer screen hadn't showed up in my dreams a time or two.
Ooh, but after all these years of doing it, though, you should be able to can you look at a recipe? Someone says, hey, this is what I'm going to feed my dogs. Can you eyeball a recipe now?
Pretty close.
Turn it around in your head, because you've been doing this for so long. See, that's what I wish I could do. Because I think
all you have to do is stare at Pet Diet Designer for the next 6 years. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do, okay? I was actually making a joke about this with my business partner, I think it was last week, where I was kind of showing them how Pet Diet Designer looks, not even how to use it, because they're not going to touch that at all. But I was just showing it to them, and I was like, I feel like Neo sometimes with this thing, because I don't see here's this ingredient and here's this ingredient and here's my calcium and phosphorus gauge. I just see it all at once and just go this is broken. I don't even see the code anymore. I just see the matrix.
So do you mostly work with people who are trying to transition from kibble? Are they people who are trying to DIY themselves but don't know what they're doing? Are they on a commercial raw? Is there any generalities like that?
I'd say trying to evaluate this honestly in my brain, just my brain's going through the old data pool. I think it's pretty evenly spaced out between people that are, if there was one that was a little bit lower, it'd probably be the people going straight from kibble to make me a recipe or teach me how to do them, that kind of thing. More so the people that are doing DIY already, but they're I'm freaked out about, I've got a Great Dane puppy, and I know that knuckling is a super valid concern, and I know that nutrition's a big component of that, and I don't want to screw that up. It's that kind of vein of crowd of, I'm already doing DIY, but I'm not confident in what I'm doing. Show me how, or make something that I can just follow. Or the people that are on some kind of pre-made, whether it's an meets or exceeds AFCO standards balanced pre-made, or if it's an 80-10-10 something, and they want to get off the pre-mades and start making their own, whether it's for costs or where the local butcher they were getting their 80-10-10 from is not selling it anymore, or this particular pre-made is great and my dog does well on it, but I'm going to have to sell my car next month to keep feeding them, kind of a thing. So it's a little bit of the people going from kibble straight to this version of raw feeding, but it's mostly, I'm doing DIY already, but I'm afraid I'm screwing something up, and I'm doing pre-mades already, and I want to get off of pre-mades and start doing DIY because I kind of have to. Some people are the nerdy type that they just want to go and do the DIY stuff because they like doing DIY stuff, but the vast majority of people that I work with that are trying to get off of pre-made, it's because it's just expensive,
Yeah.
The convenience factor. It's you can go to Kroger's and buy a $4 gallon of milk, or buy it for $11 at the gas station for the convenience.
Yeah. What's I have so many questions now. What's a common mistake you see people making when it comes to raw feeding? And I know there isn't just one, but maybe top 3.
Top 3, huh?
I'll start. Variety. I see people who want to stick with one protein, and they do it because my dog really likes this one, or it's just they basically want to feed their dogs beef for the rest of their lives, and they're terrified of trying different proteins.
And it's not like you have to go find unicorn meat or anything like that, but just having some kind of mixture, or variety, not mixture. See, my brain's on pre-mates now. Having some kind of variety, because there is data out there. There's nothing conclusive out there. I don't even know how you'd make it conclusive, like actually put together a study that could prove it. But there is data out there that suggests the more variety a puppy is exposed to younger on, the less likely they are to not only develop stuff that they have no real control over, like sensitivities and reactions to things, but also, maybe even more frustratingly so, picky eating behavior.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot with, I'm not the cat person. We need Jane Adrian in here for this, but cats imprint on things. Like their entire, what's the word I'm looking for here? Populations of certain wild cats that will die off because even though there's 99 other things that they could eat in their given area, the one thing that they were like, I imprinted on this and this is food, goes away and they just decide nothing else is food. Dogs, in my experience, are not quite that extreme, but they will go, you've been feeding me ground beef for the last 9 months, and that looks like it might be ground turkey. I think I'm just going to wait for the ground beef. I think kind of take advantage of that ferocious eating behavior that the puppies have and just make everything food. Well, not everything food, but you know what I'm saying. So I think that there's some big validity to that data suggestion because I've seen it over and over and over and over and over again. Similarly to, I think, breeders, I love you. I'm not giving you any grief over it, okay? Don't come after me for it. But I think a lot of gulping behavior comes from how puppies are fed. When you've got 10 puppies around a giant dish of whatever food it is, it's literally eat as much as I can, as fast as I can, or someone else is going to take it and it's going to be gone. And when you spend the first, we won't count, the nursing time, but the first 4 active weeks of your life where you're the one consuming the food, eating like that, like how will we expect anything else when they're literally taught, eat as much as you can, as fast as you can, or it's going to be gone and someone's going to take it? What would you do, right?
When it comes to puppies, because one of the things, we've talked about this before, and one of the things that I see as a common concern is, I want to make sure my puppy is getting all of the nutrients because they're growing so quickly. Can you speak to the importance of that?
I think pretty much I keep saying this, but pretty much everything I say gets grief from somebody in some extreme manner at some point. I don't think I can say anything about raw feeding without making somebody mad. So I think that it is vitally important and significantly less difficult than it's made out to be. Like, there's different groups of people where it's like, just feed whatever, as long as it's not kibble, it's perfect and it's ready to go. And then there's people on the other side of the spectrum where it's like, well, actually, your dog needed 325 micrograms of iodine and you're giving them 227. So you're killing, or 325 and 327. So you're basically killing your dog slowly. Those extra 2 micrograms of iodine is going to, put your dog in the dirt in about 6 months. And I feel like I'm kind of like somewhere in the middle where I don't think that it needs to be this daunting, go get a rocket science degree, but you can't do what I like to call the YouTube diet, which is you get online a lot and you see this a lot with like bully pages and stuff where it's like, here's my chicken quarters, here's my ground beef, and here's my green beans. And once a week I throw an egg in. Like, you can't do that, but you don't need to go to school for the next 3 years either. Like, it's important and significantly less complicated because a lot of people that I see putting their due diligence in and doing their research where it's like, okay, well, I've got all the core components of things, the meats, the bones, and I'm adding in some veggies in my organs, and I'm even starting to add in some supplements for the stuff that I see people say is missing all the time. And I know that everybody's feeding some kind of seed or something, whether it's the seeds or it's a seed oil. Those people that have already gone through that process are like 95% of the way there. The only thing that they actually have to do is tweak the amounts of the ingredients that they're feeding and maybe add or remove something. Like it can come down to, I've seen this multiple times where it's as simple as, well, you've got a puppy that's going to end up being like 75, 80 pounds. Either you're going to feed a bucket of chicken feet a day or do something like chicken wings temporarily instead, because they've got 3 times as much calcium for the same volume of food. So just those little teeny changes that don't seem like a big deal and aren't implementation wise make all the difference in the world when it comes to putting these things together. Like, as an example, I don't do only one recipe for people anymore. It's a minimum of 2, so they do have some variety. It's not just one thing. But back in the day when I would do one, I would not, even if you asked me to, unless you specifically told me you had something else that was balanced that you were using and this was just another option, I would not use Nex, even if you asked me to, because of the active thyroid tissue concerns. For anybody listening that's not heard of it, if you feed too much neck because of the active thyroid tissue, it can cause thyroid problems down the line, so it shouldn't be an exclusive bone source. So just those teeny tiny little changes can either make a big problem or solve a big problem. But that all is like sitting in here in my brain. But for the person at home that has to actually implement it and do it, I did my due diligence, but I'm a little bit off and you're set basically forever is virtually no different implementation wise. What do I actually have to do at home? It's like, well, instead of picking chicken feet up out of the container to put over here to be frozen, you pick up chicken wings out of this container instead. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very important, and I think it's significantly less complicated than it's made out to be, because I think, see, I'm rambling again. I think that some people really, really, really want to look super duper smart and make it sound more complicated than it is for the sake of sounding super smart and educated on the raw feedings. Yeah. And I just don't care. Like, I'm just a dude. I just hang out at my house all day with my dogs and know a thing or two about foodstuffs. So let me help you. That's it.
It also goes back to the, not understanding how to build a service-based business, because, there's this feeling of lack, like there's so much competition when, where I look at it. I remember years ago, I mean, not so much today, no one really cares, but years ago, I would get emails from people who would be like, are you okay if I write an article about raw feeding for my blog? As if I own the space. Because, I mean, in 2013, 2014, I was pretty much the only person that was writing all the time about raw feeding in the blogging space. So
was it 2010 you opened it?
2011 is when I started Keep the Tail Wagging, and 2013 is when I started feeding raw. And I wrote a few articles, but 2014 is when I really just put my foot into it. But yeah, people, look at it as, oh my gosh, there's so much competition. Someone's going to be mad. And now I see kind of like the flip side of, you want to tell people how hard it is. And in some cases, I think, this comes from their own experience, similar to like with the rescue groups, where you can talk to someone who works in rescue and they're adamantly anti-breeders, because in their experience, they've only seen the worst of the worst. And I think with some people who, whether they are an actual nutritionist or they just, play one on TV, I consider myself one of the ones that plays one on TV.
One on IG.
Yeah. They've seen the worst of the worst in whether it be a dog that got sick from a really unbalanced meal, or someone came to them because they got a meal from somewhere else, or they got a meal from online. And so they've basically boomeranged to, no, raw feeding is crazy hard. And they start saying this and sharing this. And I actually have one follower who has been following me for years, and she still has not. She's like, any day now.
Are you talking about me?
No, You're at least doing commercial. She will not do commercial. She's afraid of raw feeding because, she doesn't believe me that it can be as easy as I show that it is, because, something must be, I must be doing something. I must be missing out. And she'll tell me, I know you're doing fine. Your dogs are doing great. She's like, I just don't think I can I feel like I'm somehow going to, I don't know, drop something and a recipe will be over or under in a nutrient and her dog will.
You got to screw up really, really bad to screw up something in one shot. Like, you got to screw something up really bad. Like, did you force feed your dog an entire bottle of kelp powder? Then yeah, it's probably time to go to the vet and deal with that situation. But like, other than that, you got to screw up pretty bad.
Yeah.
You screw up pretty bad. Or a little bit for a really long time.
So I've always done commercial raw. One, because it's just like easier, and two, like it has made my brain hurt. So, because I do get intimidated with all these different models and all these different things. So is it really cheaper to try to DIY?
Depending on how you do it. Yeah, see? Both the first word out of both of our mouths, depends.
Yeah, it depends.
There's so many factors to it. Like, that's why I've seen other people that do similar things offer, like, we'll code it within this budget, but it's impossible, because let's say that there's 2 dogs within the same household and they want one recipe for each of them because they're just getting started and they want to make sure that they're doing all the things right and they've got all the nutrients and stuff. But one dog has an iron stomach and can eat anything on planet Earth and has sensitivities to absolutely nothing ever. The other dog has what I call nightmare recipes. And I don't call them nightmare recipes because of the dog or the client or anything. It's just when I look at the sensitivity sheets, it's just like red.
Oh my God. That would be Rodrigo and Sydney for me. Rodrigo would be the nightmare recipes. Sydney had the iron stomach.
And the problem there, which I'm sure Kimberly has felt from time to time, is that's not a diet you can run down to the grocery store and pick up ingredients for. The other dog in the household, you can go and pick up the, $1.19 a pound drumsticks and the $1.79 a pound pork loin and all that stuff. Your other dog, you're getting on My Pet Carnivore and Raw Feeding Miami. So it absolutely has the potential to save you a ton of money if your situation is right for it. Like, for some people, it's not as common, but for some people, it's cheaper to feed premades than it would be trying to source these high ticket ingredients on their own. Like, I have to feed them, I don't know, beaver everything, or the only thing they can have is rabbit. And so everything has to be rabbit. And it's like, well, I can go source all these rabbit ingredients individually, which are always more expensive because the animal is smaller. They don't get produced at high as volumes as chickens and turkeys do. And so everything's more expensive versus just getting a rabbit pre-made from somewhere and going, well, it probably doesn't have enough of this, and this in it. And then just getting as close as you can. So there's wiggle room with all this stuff. But for the most part, yes, you're going to, if I went and this is going to be an average, so no one thinks I'm talking about any one company. If I was going to do DIY for my dogs, it would be like $250 or something a month for both of them, and they're like 70 and 80 pound dogs. If I was going to do it with a balanced pre-made of some kind, that's going to be somewhere between $500 and $800.
Yep.
And they don't really have, like, Montu's not the biggest fan of turkey, but it doesn't bug him, like give him reactions or anything. But they're, for the most part, like, I'll eat whatever, and it'd still be that much more expensive for me to do pre-mades 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So
I've learned to do, to calculate out the balance. One thing I've noticed lately, and it isn't across the board, but I think it's going to start becoming a little more normal, is that commercial products are offering bulk discounts. So if you buy, if you're just buying like a week's worth of food, it's going to be very expensive. But if you buy a month's worth of food, they'll knock the price down. So like, for instance, I can get venison where I am through my co-op, and I'm not supposed to share the price. So if anyone's from my co-op is listening, plug your ears. On average, it's going to be about $6 a pound, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. But that's going to be just straight venison meat. It's not the organ,
Right.
It's not the bone, it's not anything else that needs to go in there. And so I'll need to go and get all the other ingredients. And by the time I put everything together, it's going to be well over $6, closer to $7 a pound.
Right.
Whereas there is a brand called Hunt Away, and no, they are not a sponsor, but they
Hunt Away.
Yeah, all one word. They offer raw, where if you buy, I think it's like 9 packages, and each package is 3.75 pounds each. If you buy the 9 package bulk item, it's like $6 and something a pound, and that's complete. So it's more affordable if I want to feed venison for me to buy that and have it shipped to me. And at that cost, you get free shipping to do it that way than it is for me to do DIY. So that's the other thing is, calculating out, because I think a lot of times people who are new to raw feeding don't consider just all the little things that you have to get. Because you hear it's supposed, you can go to the ethnic market and you can do this. And yeah, you get a lot of great deals and you can put together a meal. But if you're not careful, you might be missing out on some things too.
I feel like you have a really special co-op, Kimberly, because I've looked at other co-ops around here and like those prices are not that good. It's not that big of a difference.
Co-op. And I should have people like friends and stuff who are like, the reason why I'm not a member of the co-op is because I just don't have a big freezer, because you do have to have a big freezer. And
you really do. I've got 3.
That's where and I think that's the other thing is that's where the deals really come in is you're buying, I'm expecting 2 cases of pheasant, this month, and I don't know how much. I think each case is 40 pounds each, but I'm going to get.
I'm waiting for the reel of Kimberly cutting up pheasant.
I have friends who have animals, so when they do a slaughter, I get buckets of organ meat, and that's tons of pounds. So I have lamb, beef, and pork organs in my freezer. I'm going to order.
I think I'm just paying to not have to like touch organ.
Yeah, that's
I'm paying the convenience.
And what's funny is that I'm so weird. I follow someone on Instagram, Canines Over Coffee, which is funny because it's Canines Over Coffee, but she does a lot of raw feeding content. And she is into the whole feeding raw. Like she's giving her dog, here's a goat head, enjoy. Here's a whole rabbit, enjoy. And I have been feeding raw for over 10 years and I'm still not there. I mean, I'll do a rabbit head, but it's air dried and it feels fake. So I can't do raw rabbit heads, but I can do an air dried one because it feels like fake and I'm okay. But, I wish I were at her place because I think that's where it really gets cheap is when you can just really
do whatever.
But yeah, I can't. I do have put my hands into a bucket of warm organs because they were freshly butchered and it doesn't bother me. But that's my limit. That's where I can go. I wasn't there for the butchering. I show up like 2 hours later, so I don't even accidentally come across. I don't want to show. They give me my bucket and I take it home and I grind everything up and mix it in, and that's my organ blend.
It's an interesting experience.
It is.
Processing an animal. I think the weirdest one, because I've done chickens, I've done rabbits, and like how you dispatch them is different, but the only one that's ever made me really just go like, oh, so this is happening. Like, let's just appreciate where we're at in this moment right now. Is the neighbor used to have a couple of goats, and I think she had four. But one of them, she rolled over on while she was trying to like take the, I don't know what it's called, the sack off of the other 3 so that they could start breathing on their own. And she basically suffocated one of them. And the neighbor knew that we fed raw. And so I was like, well, I don't want you to go to waste, little buddy. That one was an interesting one. It was just, I'm like, all right, well.
I've had friends that had, piglets because the mom rolled over on a piglet. And so they,
I am not that girl.
You okay, Erin?
It's a special kind of, not everybody can do it.
I mean, granted, it's like, that's, I won't even call it extreme. I mean, that's just the way it is. I am not there yet, but I have, my friends had chickens that got, the eagle got to them, but didn't get to them. So they killed them, but wasn't able to get away with them.
Mm.
And they asked me if I want them. And I'm like, do me a favor and just make it so that
make it look like it's from the grocery store.
Yeah, do that part. And it's like, I will do the rest, but do that part. And they will. And they're like, well, what do you want? It's like, do you still want the head? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take the head and I'll take the feet but I just
don't want to see them all put together.
Yeah, I just can't have it. It's like, yeah. So
I'm cool with looking at Frankenstein. I just don't want all of Frankenstein walking at me all together.
I graduated from the grocery store, but I haven't quite made it to the farm yet. I'm still, I've been driving on this road to the farm for about 10 years now, and it's far. It's a far, far space. So,
it's an interesting experience. I think you've got to be not a special kind of person, as in you're special. You just have to be the right kind of person to be like, I'm okay with doing this. It's not fun. It's zero fun to do it. It's sad in a way, but it's also like, dude, remember those chicken strips you ate for dinner last night? It was a whole lot less pleasant for that dude than it's about to be for this dude. So, gonna feed the puppies. And for me, it's also been a, hey, do you want this chicken? Do you want this rabbit? I'm like, well, I mean, like, you're basically giving me a chore to like that I have to go deal with now. That's a not fun and messy chore to deal. Like, my other plan is to basically go let them go. And so then my moral brain kicks in because I live out in the middle of nowhere. It's like, okay, well, either I take this chicken or this rabbit or whatever it is and dispatch it myself and it's done in a few seconds, or he gets torn to pieces by one of the billion coyotes that's in our general area. Like, I'm going to do you a solid, dude, but you owe me a favor. You owe me a favor because I'm doing you a favor here. But it's no fun. Anybody that says they have fun doing it, I don't know. I kind of worry about you. I respect it. I think that it's good to do it like one time so you get to see that whole Hakuna Matata, Lion King, Circle of Life thing going on, but it's not something I'd want to do every single day either.
Yeah.
So rough eating.
You okay there?
I mean, I'm a little green, but I'm all right.
So we'll move on from that topic. Can't have one of our hosts leaving.
I just love just your face. You're trying so hard.
I do not have a poker face.
She distanced herself from the mic. She turned her body away from the conversation.
See, now listeners are going, now I wish I could see what's going on.
I've enjoyed it. Do I have all 3 dogs in here? Okay.
So have you ever fed anything like super weird or exotic?
Ooh. I think the baby goat's probably like, I think it's probably there. I mean, I've fed the stuff that's like weird initially to most people, like a chicken head or a duck head or something like that. But I think baby goat takes the trophy for this particular one. I don't think I can think of anything else that's not pretty commonplace for the community. Like the first time I saw a rabbit head, it was like, like, all right, so it's another one of those here we are in life situations. Like, if I would have asked myself 10 years ago if I thought I would be looking at a, 5-pound tray of duck heads, that would not be my answer of what I thought I'd be doing. Yeah. But other than that, super not fun for Erin to talk about a situation. Probably heads is the thing that gets me like, okay, dude, I can see, like, you're kind of looking back at me right now. Like, I didn't do this to you. You were already dead when you got here. Okay? Don't give me that look.
Yeah, even my husband like gets a little weirded out when we get stuff from like Real Dog Box sometimes, and he's kind of because I'll be like, I ain't
Like
touching it.
dehydrated smelt and stuff like that.
Or no, like the duck heads or the rabbit heads or something, And I think we have like 2 duck heads in the other room that have been in there for a couple months. In fact, Kimberly, it was in that big basket I won in Albany, so it was like they've been in there for like a year because I'm like, I ain't touching them, and he's like, I ain't touching them.
I've literally had people. One of the things that people, after people sign up for meal plans, they fill out an intake form, so I get all the information about like the dog and what the stuff they have access to. And there's one section that's like, is there anything that you will not feed your dog? Because some people are like, for religious reasons, I won't feed pork, or I've got a severe beef allergy, so I can't have beef in the house. The dog's fine with it, but I can't touch it. And I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen like nothing that can look back at me, or nothing with a face, or nothing that could animate itself and walk away, like nothing whole. I'm like, okay, I think we can work with that. Nothing with a face, eyeballs, or could get up and walk away. All right. Yeah. I think we're good. We can work with this.
Hi, Apollo.
Oh, we have a guest star. Oh, I see a tail. I think Ariane has quarantined the dogs on the other side of the house. They didn't make a bunch of noise if a cat walked by or something. So I cannot share the puppies. They're all over the internet. Kimberly's seen them a billion times. But see, puppies. They're like, oh, you wanted to hear from us? See, they're smart.
Isn't Nessie being so good?
I know.
We just adopted her about, it was around Thanksgiving time. She's about 2 or so. And the first couple episodes with her, I was like getting dragged off screen because she would like want to pull a toy or something, the whole time. And now she's a good recording buddy now. She just curls up.
I mean, it was so intense that I was like, do you need to get an adjustment? And he was like, yeah, I had to go,
Yeah, I had to go to the chiropractor a couple times.
Those listening can't see this, but you guys right there in the corner, there's those like wooden staffs. One of them has probably a foot of it that's nothing but puppy chew marks, because when we got him in 2019, when I was taking consultation calls and boot camp calls and stuff, I'm sitting here typing with one hand and the other hand is holding this stick that Montu's sitting here like pulling on and biting on, that I'm trying to keep him distracted with so that he doesn't try and leave the room, because I could keep him in with a baby gate at one point, but eventually he just went like, man, screw your baby gate. And I was on a call the first time it happened, if I remember right. I'm sitting here and I'm like, that moment where you go, it's too quiet. Look over and he's gone. And I'm like, how long has he been gone? He's dead somewhere. He didn't drink the Drano. Like, what is going on? And he was just in the other room laying next to Wolk. And I'm like, oh, dude. Aww. And eventually I had to take the baby gate down because he figured he could jump it, but he wouldn't always gauge the height right. And so he'd like go sprinting at it and not get quite enough. He'd get plenty of speed, just not enough height, and end up like barreling through this thing like a cartoon character. I'm like, oh my God, dude. All right, we're gonna have to figure out another solution. Let's play with the sticks more.
So have you noticed a growth in your Facebook group or your requests for your services over these last few months, when there's been a lot of talk going on that something might be going on with kibble? Or
yeah, and it happens every time.
Yeah.
Every time there's a major recall, every time that there's a new documentary that's coming out, or I mean, anything that sends any kind of significant ripple throughout pet food as a whole, regardless of what area it is, I think it just puts people in a place to start asking questions. Like, oddly enough, Raw Feeding 101's biggest year up to this point was 2020, like height of COVID time.
With everyone being home.
And I think that it was because regardless of what side of what aisle or what issue, whatever it was, the whole world was in a state of ask questions about things. And one of those things people started asking questions about was dog food. Yeah. So when things like that happen, like Purina's doing this or Iams is doing that, or there's a Blue Buffalo this or whatever it is, people go, and Google takes them through the SEO rabbit hole algorithms, and some of them end up with raw feeding stuff and some of them end up with a different kibble, but we see pretty big jumps when those kinds of things happen. I also think that we pop up randomly with like communities that we never hear about that will recommend us for one thing or another, because I'll see cycles where, like, in the last week, I've added 140 French Bulldog owners. Or in the last week, I've added 200 people with, a pity mix of some kind. Or 50 out of the 100 people that I just added were all dog trainers. So it's like, are people in all these different industries going like, these are some of the groups to go and look at? It's the only logical conclusion that I can come to with people with such similar backgrounds showing up all at once.
Yeah.
And when that stuff happens, I'm sure you all have seen what's going on with Purina. Where do I get started? Or, this did get my dog sick. Where do I go from here? So in a weird way, the Facebook group tells me more about what's happening in the industry than me actually looking at the industry does, because I can only download so much. I've got, stuff coming, live chats coming in from the websites, client emails, messages from people on Facebook, interviews like this and so on. And so me going out and like looking for more stuff to go through is like bottom tier. So, Rodney, I love you. I just don't see everything that you post up or anybody else, because like Kimberly's honestly probably the one whose stuff I see the most, because I'll engage with it the most. And so Facebook's like, algorithm. But I really don't see a whole lot of other people's stuff. And it's not because I don't have interest. It's just, I just can't. There's just too much. Yeah, there's too much of it. And so it's like, oh yeah, did you guys hear about? And I'll hear about it from one of my group members and go, oh, this is going on. And then I'll go look it up. Like, is it that big of a deal? Someone's going to be talking about it in the group. If it's not big enough for someone in the group to be talking about, I probably don't need to put it on my radar, as weird as that is. It's like my own little private research group.
Do you think people in Facebook groups know that there's like a search function and that they can type their question in it and see that 8,000 people have already asked that same question? Because that's like, not yours specifically, but my biggest gripe with like any Facebook group I'm in is like people basically, and it's like, there's a search button.
I hear you. I think what it is for a lot of people is a learning function combined with dopamine, because I can go and read a piece of information, but someone having a conversation with me, or me getting on Facebook and seeing so-and-so responded to my post in Raw Feeding 101 or whatever group it happens to be, right? And so it becomes a larger internal investment for them because it's for them. So even though the information is there in a billion different ways, 1,000 different times, and 100 different posts, it wasn't about them. So there's no emotional, this sounds really weird, but there's no emotional and or biochemical response for them, because it wasn't about them. It wasn't for Sparky. It wasn't for their dog. It was some random person on the internet. But when someone's like, here's this teeny little tweak to the situation that's been asked 100 times, now it's a solution for them. Now they're invested because all these people with all this experience are answering my questions. I don't know. For me, I kind of relate it to, I like watching lots of YouTube. It's like all I do all day long. I swear the second screen that I have is like 80% YouTube use.
I watch it on TV like it's a TV show.
Me too.
Before we started watching an episode, YouTube is so entertaining, and people are so clever, and they're all these topics. I will fall asleep to the history of Egypt and wake up to, Vikings. I mean, I love YouTube.
Well, and it's like the same thing if I can go watch a video and I can comment on that video, or I could be there on a live chat and this random person that I'll never meet in real life, and maybe they've got 100 subscribers or they've got 100,000 or 1,000,000, and they responded to my comment. All of a sudden there's a dopamine response. All of a sudden you're more invested. It's more real to you. So I think that would be my guess, at least as to why people make those questions, even though they could search for it. Lots of people probably don't know there's a search function, though.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't even know how to use it.
I'm just realizing my brain must like make plenty of its own dopamine, because like if I can just like read something and like not have to like engage with anyone, that is like a perfect life for me. And like,
where does your dopamine come from doing it after you read about it?
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's like, oh, I got that now. And like my husband loves YouTube, and he'll send me videos, and I'm like, please, dear God, don't make me watch a video. I could just read whatever it is so much quicker.
I think 80% of YouTube users are male.
I wonder I wonder if that is it. I love you. I get everything. I'll pick a topic. I like have my calendar, and it's like, oh, I need to learn about this, and I'll pick a topic, and I'll find like the YouTubers that I like. And yeah, I love YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to.
There's a lot of things in this house that didn't stay broken because of YouTube videos.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that one.
Yep, I learned how to start what is it called, a generator.
Yeah, there you go.
With the YouTube video, because I mean, we only start it like maybe once a year, so I forget. It's like, oh, what are the steps again?
Yeah,
I have a YouTube video saved that I go and oh, that's right. Oh yeah.
I have entire playlists of stuff where it's like, oh yeah, I was looking up how to do that. My most recent one was how to not blow myself up changing the thermocouple in the propane furnace. How not to die changing the thermocouple is my most recent how to fix something in the house YouTube search.
We just fixed the oven. My husband just fixed the oven without us having to call somebody. We were able to
YouTube
order
for the win.
The part, yeah, and I got nervous because it's a gas oven, and I'm like, please do not blow up.
It's literally, my wife had to help me, and it was both of our thoughts the entire time. I'm sure. I know that I out loud said, if we blow up, I love you. More than one time. It's just pushing the thing back in and just going, oh my God, metal on metal, propane, sparks. But I think that's why people go into the groups and don't use the search function, is because they want it to be about their dog, their situation, answers specifically for them.
Do you hear her big girl?
I hear her big girl growl. Yeah.
She's still like such a little puppy, and she curls into a tiny little ball when she's sleeping. But man, she has such a deep, scary growl. There we go.
We gave you an hour and 20 minutes. We're not being quiet anymore.
Exactly. Basically.
You had your piece.
So do you have any exciting future plans that you want to tell us about?
I'm trying to think. Anywhere this year?
I'm going to Super Zoo for sure this year. That's happening.
Okay, then I'll go.
There we go. Internet high five. So that's definitely happening this year. I'm going to be creating a lot more content this year because I have a business partner now who's all operations stuff. It's like, instead of Scott having to go on and manually email every time someone signs up for something and manually add them into the course area where all the videos are, how do we just have this all happen automatically, because it's 2024 and there's no excuse to be doing that stuff manually anymore. So that kind of stuff, so that I can just get in front of a camera again. There are other very awesome things, but I'm like 85% sure that I'd hear about it in a what are you doing kind of way if I talked about it before talking to him. So there's much more awesomeness coming that I don't think anyone else is doing right now. And this one I can say, because I've been talking about it for a long time. A software is a possibility.
Nice.
A longer term possibility, but a serious possibility, because I've used lots of them for a long time, and I love several of them, and I love a lot about several of them, and I hate several things about a lot of them, and I got qualms with a bunch of things and how they do it. So that's a potential down the road, because
That's exciting.
That's
yeah,
exciting.
it's expensive though. Oh my God.
I bet.
I asked somebody back in 2018 what it would take, and they're like, well, to get a model up and running, not counting making basically, maintenance, troubleshooting as it goes on throughout the years. It was just like, you need 10 grand for a working model. And I was like, we'll come back later. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. So that's coming, but mostly the big thing is more content. We're going to be doing live streams every Friday again. I actually have to today, like after this call, announce what Friday's live stream is going to be about. I'm going to be doing live streams with boot campers, and they're the ones that I teach how to use the software that I use to make the meal plans, so they can just make their own instead of having to wait for me to do it. Going to be doing live streams with them only once a week, so that we can talk the lingo, so to speak. It's like, hey, but what about the percentage of this thing? And the other 84,000 people in the group are going like, huh? Like, what? What is it this? So that and other things that I'll get in trouble for if I talk about, which is good. There's things that are exciting enough that I will get in trouble if I talk about them, which is a good thing.
That is
so like, oh, not much. Not much is going on. Like, no, I'll be in trouble. I can't.
So what do you think the future, like the near future, holds? Do you think it's more people coming to raw feeding? Is it more people working with these nutritionists? Is it the apps and the programs? Like, is there like a future of raw feeding that you see?
I think a lot of things. One, Kimberly's actually said this a couple of times in past streams and stuff that we have done. And I think that a major pet food brand at some point is going to, quote unquote, shadow create a raw food brand.
I think it's already in the works.
Where there's going to be like 30 companies separating X major kibble brand that we already know, like Mars or whatever else who owns all these other ones, and then 30 company corporate lines down the road in a tax form somewhere is this new raw food company that's going to have millions and millions and millions of dollars dumped into it. And I think that's going to happen.
We know. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the amount of anti-raw articles. I mean, they used to come out with an article like every few months where it was like, the super anti-raw article. And
sponsored documentary. Trust me, I'm a vet.
Changed to targeted articles, so they were talking about specific brands, and now it's just quiet. And I think that they are working their way into coming into the space.
I agree. As far as the doing it at home people, I think that education being delivered in a more digestible way is the next step. Because I think that people are getting too educated to go, and the community as a whole is getting too educated because there's so much information available now, to where everyone can, for the most part, there's always going to be just, the hard line in the sand people where like, my dog doesn't eat anything other than a pile of meat, a bones, and a slice of liver once a week. There's always going to be those people. But for the most part, the community is getting to the point where it's like, okay, well, there's these other things that I could add in here that are not that hard to source, and I have to add really small amounts of it. So now I think it's going to become, what's the simplest way to do this? Which that's part of what I'm trying to do. I'm not saying that I'm going to be responsible for that change. Like, my ego is very large, but not quite that large. But that's kind of that middle place that I was talking about earlier, where I'm like, you can't just feed the YouTube diet. Like, you just can't, guys. But at least not long term. But it's not like it's not that hard. It's really, really not. The most, like, when someone goes through one of the boot camps, the most difficult part for them is figuring out how the software works, not the actual balancing part. It's like learning how to navigate through the software is harder than making the recipes. And I think that's the next piece, is making this digestible. Another thing I think is going to happen is someone's going to come out with a really good supplement brand that is dog specific. Like, really, really dog specific. Not, oh, well, and I love Cal and now bone meal powder as an example. But when I go and buy that from the store, or I tell a client to go and buy it, and you pick up the bottle or you look at the advertisement on Amazon, it's, this like 75-year-old couple holding hands together, happy about their bone health now. And it's like, no, well, it's great, but, can we get more dog specific? Is there a way that, I don't even know what the answer is 100%, but is there a way that we can make this zinc supplement more absorbable, so that instead of giving a 15 milligram tablet every day, we can give it every other day, and cut the costs and less supplementation? And so I think that's another thing that's going to happen. But education is going to be the next thing, because there's too much out there. People are going to pick an avenue and go down it. It's going to be like a car people thing. Like, there's so much option. There's so many options available now, where it's like, you're going to go down the DIY or the Toyota hole. You're going to go down the adding on to a premade Buick hole or whatever it is. And that's what they're going to be forever. And 10 years from now, it's going to be like Chevy and Ford guys, but DIY and premade people giving each other a hard time. But end of the day, hopefully it's just more healthy dogs that are getting what they're supposed to get every day, because it's really the only thing I care about. Forget the politics. Who cares? Can we just feed the dogs, please? Dogs are easy. Can we all just be a little more like dogs? Just want to come home, rub your belly. No, that'd be weird. I was on a chat with someone the other day, and she was talking about her family and her dogs. I'm like, all right, well, we'll get these meal plans over to you and blah, blah, blah. Make sure to go give everyone belly rubs. And I was like, well, the ones in the house with tails, don't go give your husband and your son's belly rubs for me, because that would be awkward. Okay. It'd be a little bit awkward. Like, what are you doing? Oh, we got a furry face.
Now I got the old man. This is my 10-year-old guy, Nino.
Nino,
yeah.
Oh, hello.
He's
Mama,
very shy.
Why is the box talking? Why is the box talking?
I just did a dog switch, so no, I got the old guy.
Yeah, I think Ariane's got our dogs locked away somewhere, which, thank you. Thank you, wifey. I know you can't see this because it's not live, but...
Oh, hello. Gosh, mine are coming back.
What do you say, Kimberly? Is that a good National Raw Feeding Week chat?
I think that's an excellent National Raw Feeding Week. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
I have to ask, what year is this now?
I think I started it in 2018. But I
think you're right. I think it was the year after our first Super Zoo together.
Yeah, I think
you're right.
I think it was. I know I did write about it recently.
I think that you started writing about it when we came home, because it was in like July or August, and you actually like launched it the following spring in 2018.
I probably did. Let's see. Here we go.
I can't remember what I had for dinner 2 days ago, but I can tell when National Raw Feeding Week started.
Yeah, 2018.
All right.
Yes. Yeah. My brain still works with some stuff.
2018. So.
Dog food and when Kimberly does stuff, apparently.
Yeah, the 6th year of it. So.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Who else have you interviewed so far, and who else is on the docket?
No one. You're it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel special now.
I know. Well, I used to do that where I would interview tons of people. That was so miserable. It was absolutely the interviewing part was fun, but then I'd have to go and edit. And doing all these things, plus run the blog, plus have a full-time job. And even though every year I would like start in January, and I would still be struggling to get everything. And after, I think not last year, but the year before, I was just like, I'm not doing this ever again. And so I don't.
Well, now you're making me feel all special.
Yeah.
I already told you I've got a big ego, and now you're sitting here like trying to make it bigger and stuff. Ariane's going to be mad at you.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. You're my buddy. You're the person that I can go to and say things to about, can you believe what's happening?
Can you believe it? Would you just look at it?
What is going on here?
Well, then I'm looking forward to Super Zoo even more because we'll get to hang out again. I haven't been since 2021.
Because I was just like, there's no reason really for me to go. But now I have you'll have to let me know what days you'll be there because I'm going to pop in and out.
I don't think I'm going to be there all 3 days. It's too much.
Yeah. No,
it's too much. There's not enough, unless this year's really different, there's not enough raw feeding or fresh food, natural solution stuff to see. The other stuff is kind of cool to see, just to see what's happening inside of the industry all over the place. But once you see it once, you're like, nah.
I don't think I need to go for this socialization. So I figure I'll go for 2 days.
The socialization.
And get socialized. And that way I won't.
Gotta make sure you don't bite other people.
Yeah. So I won't bite people when I get home. So
Erin's like, will you guys shut up? I said, let's end this like 5 minutes ago.
It was wonderful talking to you. Goodbye.
You too. Nice to meet you, Erin. Very nice to actually officially say hello.
Thank you.